Hi everybody, I'm going to review some of the content related to sampling. I went over this in class during week 3, and you can find these slides. These are Rebar's PowerPoint for chapter 6. You can find these in the week 3 folder. I would also point out that if you open the slides you can see the notes on the bottom that actually reinforce some of the information. So you've got it in the book. There's some information in the slides in the notes section, and then you'll have this. So in talking about sampling, as noted, there is a difference between how sampling is approached in qualitative versus quantitative research. And that's because it's looking at or looking for very different information. So in qualitative research, the researcher is looking for deep information and deep understanding of a particular concept. And oftentimes, as they're determining their sample, they don't really know their final sample size because they're not sure how long it's going to take before they have what's called saturation. And saturation is when, after interviewing each person, nothing new emerges. So it could take 8 people, talking to 8 people, and the example I used in class on Tuesday was what it's like to be an RN to BSN student in an accelerated program. And we said the first person might say things like, difficult to have work-life balance, stressful to manage, getting all the assignments done, invigorating because I'm learning new things. And then the next person might add, it's putting strain on my family relationships. And the next person might say, my colleagues are really supportive and that's making it so much easier for me. And so as we would go through, we might, by the 8th, 9th, or 10th person, nobody's adding anything new to what this experience is like. And so that means that the data saturation, because all that information that's being spoken is data, that data saturation has occurred, and so that sample size is sufficient for that particular study that's being done. So again, the sampling approach is very different, and the number of people in the sample looks different. In quantitative, some of the things that need to happen is at the start of the study, based upon the types of instruments that are being used, types of questionnaires or tools that are being used, the researcher can, using software, actually have that software help them determine the proper sample size for their study. So at the outset, at the very beginning, the researcher makes a determination of what an appropriate sample size is, and that's driven very much by the type of statistic that they're going to do, and by the type of the quality, the type of data they're using. Is it nominal? Is it interval? And also by the number of items that they're measuring, so the number of variables they're measuring. If they're just measuring anxiety, they might not need as many people as if they were measuring anxiety, sleep, exercise, and meditation, because that now continues to add the number of variables that they're looking at, and that would change the number of subjects that they need in their study. So that's the difference in the sampling approaches. We then have, when we talk about qualitative sampling, convenience sampling, snowball, or purposive. Convenience is those are the people we have in front of us. That's true whether it's qualitative or quantitative. Snowball is when we actually we want to talk to critical care nurses. And so I'm interviewed, and then I provide the researcher with other possible critical care nurses that they might want to speak to. Purposive is identifying very particular characteristics that we want in that population. So we might want to talk to nursing faculty, but maybe we want to talk to nursing faculty who are at the beginning of their career. So we would say we want nursing faculty who have been teaching for 2 years or less. So qualitative, depending on what it is that the researcher is seeking to understand further, the sampling approach will differ based on that. And we're going to skip these questions. And then in quantitative, there's two approaches, non-probability and probability. So non-probability, and I'm going to turn it upside down. Probability means that everybody has an equal chance to be part of the study in some way, shape, or form. And non-probability is really when the researcher goes out and uses the people that are available to them. And so one of the reasons we think about sampling approaches is because we're thinking about how to minimize bias, how to try to assure, whether it's qualitative or quantitative, how do we try to assure that we're getting data that's as objective as possible. And so being careful about our sampling approach so that we don't leave people out, or that we are looking so specifically at a particular population that we would miss something. That's the problem with bias. So we have a variety of non-probability samples. And, sorry. Okay, let me go back. So convenience sample, those are the people that are right in front of us. Sampling frame is the particular population that we're interested in. So critical care nurses might be my sampling frame. OB, labor and delivery nurses might be my sampling frame. Nursing students, those are the sampling frame. Quota sample is reaching a particular number of people, and matched sample is when I want to compare two similar groups. Again, I can't randomly assign because I'm trying to match or understand two similar groups. So the strengths are that the researcher has the sample in front of them and can efficiently accomplish the study. And as we've noted in class, studies can take a long time. They can be very expensive. So when we add things like, when we add trying to randomize, sometimes that can add on time and add cost to the study. But some of the weaknesses really relate around potential bias that can be induced. I'm going to pass the questions. And then probability samples, these are all the different types of ways that one could manage probability sampling. So you may see these different types of random sampling, how they went about it, and these are all probability sampling. Okay, and I think I just want to double check that there's nothing else we want to do here. I spoke to you about this earlier. So in qualitative data, the sample size is noted in the publication. They'll say they reach data saturation. In quantitative studies, you won't always see this, although you're seeing it more. They'll talk about the fact that they did power analysis. They'll often speak about a software called G-Power. That's the most common one that's used to determine sample size. Okay, and so I'm going to leave it at that, but when you go and look at the Hopkins form and you're looking at sample and they're asking about adequacy of sample, these are some of the things that you would take into account.